Okay.
All right.
Okay, so what you...
Tell me about your earliest memories.
My earliest memories?
Yeah.
Well,
That was the...
my earliest memories when I was a little boy.
What do you remember?
I remember going up to camp in Livingston Manor with my parents up in, as a camper up at Camp Livingston. And that was the best times of my life at the time. I was a camper and I enjoyed it very much. My parents owned the camp up there. I remember all the sports and the color war and the
When did they
kids.
buy the camp?
They had that camp in the 20s and the 30s, and they got rid of it in 1947. My father was too sick to keep it up, but they had it. It was an adult camp as well as a children's camp. I got up there 3 weeks before the campers. They took me out of school earlier, and I stayed there until everyone went home, and I was there later. I used to work with the workmen. That's how it became so handy. I used to learn how to do electrical and cement work, everything. I used to work with them and carpentry work. I did everything up there as a little kid.
So tell me where you.
I was a camper. I used to love it. I went swimming in the lake. I went rowing. I learned how to swim up there. It was great. Sports, baseball, softball, basketball. Went on hikes. I remember everything. You asked me, what are my earliest memories? That's what it was. And I still remember the camp. We used to blow the bugle for the flag raising, and it was great. I loved it. My mother used to give me in the kitchen. I remember multiplication tables and to learn. It was just unbelievable. It was a fantastic experience for me up there.
Tell me where you lived.
I lived at 1818 59th Street. Then we moved to lived on 57th Street off 18th Avenue. And we moved to 1522 58th Street. I lived there from 43 to 53. I went to PS 180 first and, on 18th Avenue, I remember there, and that was during the war years. And then moved to 58th Street. I went to public school for first and second year of public school, and then I went to yeshiva, Eitz Chaim. Then my aunt took me out of there, and my parents, without their permission,
Which aunt?
Torah Semis, huh?
Which aunt?
Oh, my Aunt Frida. She was very religious. Without my parents' permission, they were very annoyed because Lenny Goldberg was going to Torah Semis, and she didn't like Eitz Chaim on 50th Avenue, on 50th Street and 13th Avenue. So she registered me in Torah Semis on 12th Avenue, and that's where I went. And that's where I graduated from in 1949. 1 year, RJJ on Henry Street. I went by train. I went there on the east side. And after that, then I went to Utrecht High School.
So you went to yeshiva from 3rd to 8th?
From 3rd to 8th, and then 1 year in high school, and then I went to Utrecht High School, graduated from there in 1953. Then I went to RCA Institutes for radio repair, which was my interest at the time, because my brother-in-law Henry was into electronics and everything, as an engineer.
How long did you go for?
I went for 9 months.
Did you graduate?
I graduated with the V3 course, radio, television repair.
And then what did you do?
In November 54, I graduated there, and from there I waited. I went into the Army, and February 11th, 55. And I came out in January 57.
Yeah, you said your parents moved in 53?
They moved in 53 from 58th Street to 1969, 69th Street.
And that was the unit
five,
apartment,
yeah, right.
unit house.
Yeah, but the tenant had to get out. It's an illegal apartment.
On the basement.
Basement apartment, yeah. So.
Yeah.
But I used to do everything there with my parents. I mean, I used to tar the roof and do everything there, paint, everything. I mean, you know, I was in much better shape than I am now, of course, without my leg problem. And,
So you went into the Army,
I went to the Army.
With that bubble.
and
I was, in the Army from Fort Dix. I went to
That's a big
Fort Benning, Georgia, radio repair school. And that was an airborne outfit. And then from there, they sent me to Bayonne, New Jersey, to a AAA 90 mil AAA anti-aircraft outfit.
ball.
And we went to maneuvers in Louisiana, Sagebrush, exercise Sagebrush.
Oh my God!
And from there, I came back. They sent me overseas to the 382nd MP Battalion. And technically, I was in the headquarters platoon, taking care of all the radios, but I was still in the MPs, and I was turnkey down the station. I was paddy wagon driver, and I also, what they call pull the street, and I did that during the day. I ran a patrol during the day.
where were you?
I was in Karlsruhe, Germany.
How long were you there?
I was there until January 57. I got over there in basically January 56.
And then what happened? Where did you go after that?
I came home, I was discharged.
And what did you do?
When I was discharged, I was looking for a job. First job I had was, believe it or not, selling vacuum cleaners,
Door to door?
door to door, and I did well, but I don't know, just people were unhappy after I made the sale. They were calling my mother. I should, because I had trade-ins, it was funny. My mother said, well, we were coming off taking their old vacuum cleaner and selling them the filter clean vacuum cleaner and telling them to put a quarter in a box every day. It was funny. I just had to quit. I didn't like that kind of sale.
So where did you go then?
So from there, ironically, I got a job in May with Goldsmith Brothers, selling stationery and office supplies. And I became their first and only outside salesman.
Who did you sell to?
Huh?
Who did you sell to?
I sold to everybody in New York. I used to
With individuals or
Well,
stores?
first of all, I was selling inside. They gave me, I was selling in the staple department. Every department had a specialty. And I was working with this guy, Frank Romanelli. This is funny because he went away on vacation and he asked me to take over his desk. He was what they call the roaming salesman. So I used to sit at his desk and all his customers used to come in to see him, and I would take all his phone calls. And then when he came back, I learned everything. I learned the whole store. I learned everything in stationery and office supplies. And I went to the manager and I said, you know, it's ridiculous. You have nobody outside visiting customers. You ought to have someone go on the outside, because I started out at $50 a week. They started me off with a big $50 a week. And these salesmen they had on the phone, getting a 0.5% here, 1/4% here. People were calling them up to place orders. So this guy who was in charge of the mail order said, you want to go on the outside and sell? I said, yeah. So he sent me up to the 4th floor and gave me a desk. I remember Viola Harris, they made her, a black girl, they made her my secretary, and they printed out business cards for me and gave me a desk and said, okay, go out and sell. So I started, this is funny, I started canvassing buildings all over and giving out cards and getting in business. And they told me I can work on 10% whatever I'm bringing in. So being creative, this was the mail order department. So I got in there early and I went through the mail order. And I picked up accounts that way. I picked up names and I wrote the orders for mail order, and I went to see these people personally. I said, look, instead of sending the orders in through mail order, call me personally. I'll be your new salesman. And all of a sudden I started writing a hell of a lot of business. And from $50 a week, all of a sudden I'm writing 10% business and I'm making $10,000 a year. And in 1957, this was a lot of money.
So how long did you do this?
I was doing this for quite a while, but what happened was Ruby Goldsmith, who was in charge of this, passed away. And there was another outfit that bought them out called, I forget their name right now. Another station that bought them out. And all these salesmen on the phone and Romanelli and all of them, they all left. They went to a place called Silver Stationery. So they all left Goldsmith Brothers because they were all out of a job. And, I forget the name of the other outfit. But anyhow, I got disgusted with them. So I said, hey, instead of my selling stationery,
Okay, go ahead.
so I started making a list of suppliers, and I said, instead of me selling to consumers, let me go to suppliers. So I made a list of suppliers, and the first supplier I came up with was ABC Ribbon and Carbon. So I went up to him, and he hired me. So I started selling ribbons and carbons to the stationery store. So I started selling for him, and I was doing all right. And I forget the guy's name at the moment. But he smoked like crazy. He used to smoke like, one cigarette was burning, he lit up another one. He was down on Broadway, his offices.
So how long did you do that?
I did that for about 8 or 9 months, I think it was.
And then?
Well, what happened was the guy died.
You have a good effect on people.
The guy died and this company closed up. So I got disgusted. What was I going to do? I started looking around for something else, and I went into another field. I got a job with Cone Marks, and that was by this time I think I met Mommy. And Cone Marks was in textiles. They put me on there, exhausted through tests. Went through a whole battery of tests, and they put me on their training program. So I worked inside for about 8 months in their showroom, learning the textile business. They were selling fabric. Matter of fact, I worked with Erwin Rothenberg and with this other guy who played for the Knicks. I can't think of his name right now. Then they gave me a training territory, and they gave me the bags, and I went out selling to dealers. And I was doing pretty good. But the training territory was only a training territory. Went to Long Island and New Jersey, and I was out selling fabrics, textiles. And after I finished the training territory, and at that time, the biggest man with the company at that time, I forget his name, was making a big $50,000 a year, and in those days, that was a lot of money. So they claimed I was going to make a lot of money, and I was going to college at night, by the way. I was going to City College at night all this time. Even while I was working for Goldsmith Brothers, I was going to college at night. The City College on 23rd Street, Bernard Baruch.
How long did it take you to get your degree at college?
Well, I got my degree finally in '63.
When did you start?
I started in '57.
Took you 6 years going at night.
6 years at night. But anyhow, make a long story short.
Oh, and you majored in marketing, I think.
In business administration, BBA, and I majored in marketing management. But anyhow, let me go back. So they wanted to give me a territory. I should move down south, take Alabama and Mississippi and Tennessee and sell in those areas. But at this time I was going with Mommy. I said, no, give me something local. I mean, I don't want to. They said, look, either you take that territory or you leave the company. I said, I can't take that territory. They said goodbye. So I left them. So I started looking around, and since I was already in that mode of station and office equipment, I got a job with Coal Steel and Equipment. So I started working inside in customer service on the phones for Coal Steel and Equipment at 415 Madison Avenue, and that was a good job for a while. I was inside, and I was on the phones taking orders, and I did very well. And I did so well that as soon as an outside territory opened up, I was the first one to get the territory. So they gave me an outside territory selling office furniture, desks and chairs and file cabinets. And I was selling downtown in Manhattan. I was walking the streets downtown. My territory is from 23rd Street all the way downtown to the Battery, and I was doing well with them. And then, ironically, Cold Steel and Equipment was bought out by another company, and we were all out of a job. So I had to find something else. So I got a job with a company called Pacer International. Pacer International were making photocopy machines. Photocopy machines, it was made by a toy company, and it was a wet process. And we had a good deal. We were in the Seagram's building, and every Friday we had cocktails and everything. We were out selling. So it was a good deal. We were opening up deals like crazy. We were selling a package of 3 machines, and it was a $39.95 machine. We sold to banks, and it was crazy. And there was a guy by the name of Fitzpatrick who was the credit manager, and he was a crazy nut. So we were doing so well in New York, they decided to open up New England, and it was in January. We all 9 of us, we went and we met in New England in Hartford, Connecticut, and we're going to open up New England. And we went up to New England, selling in New England. And while we were up in New England, people in New York were complaining and selling their machines back. They weren't trained right how to use it, because it was a wet machine with two papers with a certain chemical. And they wanted to sell it, but they couldn't sell it because they didn't know how to use it. We sold them the machines, and they didn't know how to use it. But I said to them at the time, and then, by the way, they had made me a district sales manager. And this guy, Greg McNitty, was the regional sales manager for them. And we're up selling in New England, and the people in New York are sending their machines back, because this guy, Fitzpatrick, was calling them up and cursing them out and saying, you better send this money or this, and because people didn't want to pay, and they couldn't sell their machines. We sold them a package of 3 machines, and it was sitting in their back rooms, and they couldn't sell it. Well, to make a long story short, after a while, the company, we come up there one Friday, and the company was owned by this guy, Lyle, I don't remember his last name.
You lived in New England?
He didn't live in New England, he lived in New York.
No, you.
No, I didn't live in New England. We were selling in New England. We went up and we were staying in motels while we were opening up. We were moving from Hartford. We were in different hotels. There were 9 of us.
So what happened then?
We came back to New York, and we found out that the company owed a lot of money, and this guy Lyle, what the heck is his last name? We had fancy offices, fancy equipment, everything. We came up there one day, and they were moving out all the furniture and everything. It turned out that this guy owed a lot of money, and everything up there was rented and leased, all the furniture. And the machines were made by a toy company in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and this guy was going out of business.
So what happened then?
Well, we were making good money, by the way. I was getting paid $10,000 a year from him. We were out of a job, all of us. As a matter of fact, I hired a guy from high school, Ronnie Birnbaum, who was a friend of mine. He was out with us too. I remember from high school. I hired him, and well, when I got out of there, I didn't know what to do. I was looking around. I was out of work. Finally, I went to the Open Your Own Business show, and I was married at this time, by the way, Tommy. Out of a job and was collecting, and I went to the Open Your Own Business show, and I got involved with Martin Paint. And then I opened up Martin Paint store.
How did you get involved with Martin Paint?
I went to the Open Your Own Business show, and they were there.
And how did you get thrown together with your partner?
Well, the broker, I didn't have enough money to open it on my own. So the brokers, I could have opened up a smaller unit with the money I had, but the brokers said, well, you want to open up a bigger store, blah, blah, you're going to have to need a partner. So he got me together with Fred.
What was his name?
Fred Guberman. Guberman, yeah. And we met together, we went on a picnic together. He was 17 years older than me at the time, and we sort of hit it off. We met at a picnic and whatever, and so we decided to open up. But the store wasn't ready yet, so almost a year we both worked for the chain of Martin to learn the business. He worked in Franklin Square, Long Island. I worked for some Brooklyn stores and some in Ridgewood store in Brooklyn, 18th Avenue and 13th Avenue. So we both learned the business before the store was ready.
How did you choose the location of Pleasantville,
It was in Briarcliff
or
Manor.
Briarcliff Manor?
The broker found it. Well, the broker, so a real estate broker found the location for us.
So how did it go?
It went very well. It was going very well for a while. For almost 6 years we were together. But what happened, I didn't like Fred after a while. I didn't like his practices. It wasn't working out, so I had to get rid of, I couldn't take him anymore.
So why did you leave and not him?
Why? Good question. Because we agreed we were going to sell the store, the both of us were going to leave. When it came down to nitty gritty, just to show you what kind of guy I was, I had someone at the time that was going to buy me out, or buy the store. And he saw what kind of person Fred was, he backed out. I already made another commitment at the time, and it was too late for me to get out of it, which eventually I did and went out on my own.
How did you end up in the shirt business?
I was going to go, since Martin was a franchise, I was going to go into another franchise. I was looking at the franchises, and Shirts Unlimited was the franchise. So I was going to go into Shirts Unlimited. And then when I met another guy that opened up a Shirts Unlimited store, he talked me out of it. He says, no. He says, Shirts Unlimited is a bad franchise. If you're going to do it, go it alone. By this time, we were living in the Bronx. And I decided to go it alone. I knew nothing about the business, but I learned it pretty fast. So I went to different stores and I learned about sizes and other things, and I got a list of the different suppliers. And I went to suppliers that I wanted to buy from, and they learned, taught me what I needed, and I bought the scales.
So how was it that you opened before the rest of the shopping center opened?
Well, because I had the commitment with the shopping center, and it was a mistake. Because I was you're making me dizzy by shaking.
Sorry.
And I was committed for a date, and as far as
In your lease?
the lease, and the bank was supposed to open, the stationery store opened, and other stores were supposed to open, and they weren't ready in time.
How long were you open?
I opened, as a matter of fact, I had a big grand opening. I was going to bring in coffee and donuts, and the workmen that were working, they came in and had the coffee and the donuts. The customers weren't coming in. So what happened was, I made commitments for merchandise, and I had to be paid. And I wasn't doing the business. And I came in the winter. When I started doing business, it was too late. So I could have walked out of there. One store, there was a shoe store that went in there. The guy walked out of there with a lot of money and said, "The hell with it, go find me." And he walked out of there. I should have done the same thing, but I was too honest. So I started paying this one, that one, and the other one, and
How long were you in business?
almost 2 years there. Well, not quite. And I went through a season. I did well on the season. I did well on Father's Day, but it wasn't enough. Career Club Shirt came in one day and closed me up with the sheriff, and I owed him $2,000, and I couldn't pay them. I just couldn't pay them. I didn't have enough.
Let's go back in time. Isn't there? Until you were married, you lived at home with your parents, didn't you?
I sure did.
So tell me how you met Ma.
Well, this is funny because when I came out of the Army, I was going with Mendy and a whole bunch of guys, it was a religious crowd. And we used to go to Far Rockaway for the summer. And on Wednesday nights, we used to go out. On Wednesday night, there was a whole religious crowd that used to go out in the 80s and hang out there. And I met a lot of people. We went on boat rides, like with Apollo Mizrahi, whatever. I met a lot of girls and guys. But is that thing working?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, for the summer, we went out, and as a matter of fact, before this, while I was in the Army, I I was writing, when I came home on leave, I met this girl, I was writing to her, and writing to me. We were going out quite a bit, you know, when I came back. And everybody went out for the weekends to Far Rockaway. I went with Mendy and Jaime and Jordy, a whole bunch of guys. We took a room, you know, for the weekend. And this one girl from Williamsburg I met, and she just latched on to me, and her father was a butcher. It's funny. And every weekend she brought me chicken, and I had chicken. I didn't bring anything from home. And we used to eat in the room and hang out at the beach and everything, you know. And Saturday, the religious guy, we used to play cards, poker, and everything. What the heck? And they go to shul. We sit in the room and smoke, and then clean our mouths, and then go to shul and daven, you know. But these are, matter of fact, you know, the in Staten Island, the kosher deli there. I mean, the kosher dairy, Mark, well, his father was one of the crowd that used to come out to Rockaway with his Jordy and his brother, the two brothers. Anyhow, we used to go out every weekend. So this girl, Claire, latched on to me, and, you know, as I remember this Harriet and Julie, they got engaged after the summer, and everybody was latching on to each other. So this girl, Claire, latched on to me, and I don't know, before you know it, we sort of got engaged after the summer. You know, for a while. She lived on Lee Avenue.
Did your parents know?
Yeah, they knew her and everything, but then I started seeing there was something, I don't know, she just wasn't for me. She was just, it was all sex and everything. There was nothing, I took classes in college, she took the same classes, and I saw in school that she wasn't very bright. And she did some stupid things. My parents would go to Maryland, and she'd come over to my house, and I remember we went by train, and we just missed the train, and this did it. She did a very stupid thing. The guy was taking the tokens out of a bucket, and instead of waiting for the next train, she was so anxious, she ran over to the bucket to put her hand down in the bucket to take the tokens out.
How long were you engaged?
Not for very long, for about 3 months or something. And then I just couldn't take it anymore. I broke.
Was the ring the engagement ring you gave Ma, was it the one you gave her?
Yeah.
The same ring or the stone?
The stone. It was, I don't remember. I think I reset it. I don't know.
Did Ma know?
She knew. She knew. But anyhow, what happened is I broke off with her. But anyhow, I went with a couple of the dates after that. I went out with the different girls from college I met, and so. What happened, I went to an engagement party from someone from school that I was friendly with. And there I met Ronnie Gordon. Because Ronnie Gordon was a friend I used to know from hanging around younger with Mendy and a whole bunch of, you know, her name was Ronnie Sternclaw.
You look like me.
And so her husband was a pharmacist, and he was off that night. So I was hanging around with Ronnie, I was dancing with her, and she knew I was engaged, and I broke off. And so she said, Bob, you know, if you're interested, I have a friend that you might be interested in. So she gave me Bunny's.
How did Ma know her?
She grew up, but she was very friendly with her. She knew her from school and everything.
From grammar school or high school?
From high school, whatever. She knew her for a long time. You know, Mommy went to New Utrecht too for a while, and I didn't even know when I was in New Utrecht. Then she went to Madison. But she was also in Borough Park. Mommy lived in Borough Park.
You and Ma went to the same high school?
Yeah, but I didn't know her there.
How many years?
She went there for a while, then she transferred to Madison.
But it was a big school.
I went to a big school. I mean, I didn't know her there. You know, there was a lot of people I didn't know.
So Ronnie gave you the phone number.
So Ronnie says, look, I have a friend that you might be interested in. I'll take the number. So I took the number and I put it in my pocket. And so I went out with this one girl who was very, very nice, beautiful, beautiful girl. But,
Daddy.
so, one second.
Okay.
Just before I say.
Okay, go ahead, it's on.
So I dropped her off, and I went to the train, and I missed the train. So as I'm waiting for the next train, it was a elevated train. I just happened to put my hand in my pocket, and I saw the number. So there was a phone booth there. So I called her Mommy up on the phone. I thought, what the heck? So I called her up for a date. And she says, no, I can't go out with you because I'm going to the ballet or something. I said, oh, God, one of these, you know. So she said, well, maybe call me again. And I did. And I called her again, and she said, yeah, I'll go out with you. So when we went out, I didn't have a car at that time. So Mendy drove me with this guy Arnie to her house. And I picked her up, and Mendy drove me to the movies on Flatbush Avenue. Then we went to the movies.
What movie did you say?
I don't remember the name of the movie, to tell you the truth. I forget.
So you went out to the movies and then
We
what?
went out to the movies, and then we went to a restaurant, and we had a bite. And I was telling her, we walked in, and I'll never forget, there was a mirror. And she was dressed so nicely, wearing like a fur jacket, you know. Father was a furrier. And I'm walking in, she was wearing flats, and I'm walking in. Used to go out there, and you had to wear a suit in those days when you went out on a date. And I'm walking in, I'm saying, boy, you know, I think this girl's a little taller than me. Because she was tall. And I said, nah, she's not going to go out with me again, you know. But went out, and then we took a bus. We took a bus to go home, and dropped her off, and I said goodnight. And I said, you don't mind if I call you again? She says, no, call me again. I called her again, and I never went out with anyone else again, never again. And we kept going, I called her again, and we went out. And
When was your first date, do you remember?
the first date?
What year?
Yeah, it was in 1959. 1959.
Just to back up a little bit.
And we got engaged in was it 58, 59? Might have been 58. We got engaged, I think, in 59. Or 60. It was the sweetest year. I remember it was the sweetest year or something that we got engaged, and then we got married in 61. I had a thing that said it was the sweetest year day. October 15th or something was the sweetest day of the year when we got engaged.
Huh.
And it's funny, when I first went in there, Mother liked me. She kept bringing me cookies and everything, feeding me with cookies when I came into the house, you know. But yeah, so I never went out with anyone again, and I never loved anyone as much as I did. I never loved anyone as much as I loved Bonnie.
All right, let me back you up a second.
Well, I gave her driving lessons and everything.
Tell me about growing up with your parents, what it was like.
Wasn't easy. Wasn't easy.
Tell me.
My parents were very strict, very strict. Matter of fact,
Were they Orthodox, or were they not?
well, I went to shul with my father all the time, but I never did anything else with him. The only thing we ever did was to go visit relatives.
Did he turn the lights on Saturday?
Oh yeah, yeah.
He did.
They weren't that.
But he wouldn't drive.
Huh?
He wouldn't drive.
No, not really. I mean, but we never did anything really. We walked to shul. We were on 58th Street and 15th Avenue, and we walked to different shuls. We walked to shul on to Bethel, which is on 50th Street and 5th Avenue, and 49th Street, you know, and 15th Avenue.
All right, I want to go backwards a little bit.
So I always went to shul with my father.
Tell me about your grandparents. Do you remember any of them?
The only one I really remember is my mother's mother,
And her name was?
Pearl.
What do you remember about her?
Well, she was a heavy set woman, and I remember my father's grandmother. She was not a nice
Is
person.
that Bubba Lippy?
Yeah, she was not a nice person. She was not a nice person at all. No, but I remember going to see her and all, but I don't know. She was not a nice
Do you remember your father's father?
person. No, I was named after him.
That's true. That was a
Her
dumb
name
question. How
is-
about your mother's father?
No, no, I don't remember. No, I don't think he was in this country. Oh yeah, he was. It's real. From what I understand, he was a peddler. A peddler.
Yeah, I know. I heard
peddler.
that. I know that story.
But I do remember, I do remember my Uncle Charlie. He was a dentist in Williamsburg, and I remember going to him and sitting in his chair and watching the train go by right outside his office in Williamsburg, where the train would swing around.
Well, let's start off with your mother's siblings. Do you remember any of them?
Yeah.
Who do you remember?
Oh, I remember my mother's, of course, my mother's my Uncle Lou,
Well, Lou I know.
and my Uncle Charlie,
Well,
who, by the way, Kevin was named after.
so tell me about Charlie.
Charlie was a very nice man. He was a dentist. He was very liberal. He used to, matter of fact, when I got married, Charlie and Leah, we used to go out with them. Sometimes we went out to dinner with them. Used to come over. We lived in Bedford Avenue. They'd come over. We went to dinner with them to a restaurant. We went out with Bess and Luke.
He died at a young age, Charlie.
Well, yeah, he wasn't that old. And I was close with him. I liked him very much. My Aunt Leah was a very wonderful woman.
Well, I remember Leah.
And but as far as siblings, my mother's sister,
Frida?
not Frida, my father's sister Frida. She was a character. But my mother's sister, what's her name?
Laura?
Florence, I remember, she died in childbirth. She was married to Jerry. I remember we used to go to see him as a kid. Jerry used to give me $1 every time, as a kid.
So which other uncles and aunts do you remember
No,
from your
I'm
mother?
telling you, but Lillian. Lillian I remember very well. Lillian, she used to work. She worked very hard. Her husband died young. She lived, as a matter of fact, across the street from her mother in Borough Park.
Who were her kids?
Lily was Lenny. Lenny, not Lenny Goldberg, Lenny Solomon. And I spoke to her on the way over. She called me Judy. Lily,
So tell me about your mother's other siblings.
not Judy. What am I talking about, Judy? Judy was not Lily's, not Judy. The other one, not Judy. What's that other one?
One second. Okay.
Now, Lily's daughter was Pearl. But, we never really see her, remember?
So tell me
Remember
about your
Pearl?
other uncles and aunts on your mother's side.
And so she had Lou, my Uncle Lou.
Yeah, what'd you think
my
of
Uncle
Lou?
Charlie. Lou I liked a lot. Lou was married to Bess, Uncle Charlie, and Lou, and Pearl, and Lily. And then Rose was another one who died very young.
Did you see her
She
much?
worked I remember she worked in the library. She was a librarian. And that's it, really.
Did you see your grandmother Pearl often?
My grandmother Pearl. Pearl was named after her. I saw her when I was younger. She died in the 40s, before Pearl was born. And I remember her.
Yeah. Did you like her?
She was a nice person. She was nice. She lived across the street from 40-something Street, 41st Street, 42nd Street.
What about your father's siblings?
That was Al.
Did you see him?
Oh, yeah, a lot.
What'd you think of Al?
He used to come over. Annie, he used to come over to see my father when they had yahrzeit to go to shul. He and Joey. Joey was good. Joey was the best.
Well, Joe I knew.
Joey was the best. He was baby.
Yeah, he was a nice man.
And Lou from Detroit.
Well, Jordan is named after Joe.
Yeah. and Lou in Detroit. He was the big shot that used to be in the garment business, the coat business. He used to come in, and everybody had to go see him for dinners. And Lou G. Siegel's, they had to go to Lou G. Siegel's for dinner. He had, his wife was Isabel. And see, Laura was my father's sister.
Yeah.
Dorothy was my father's sister.
So what'd you think of them?
Laura was supposedly my mother's close friend years ago. They went to pharmacy school together.
Daddy.
And yeah. Laura ruined her children. They never got married because of her, Lenny and June, you know.
And Reuben.
Reuben.
What relatives did you see a lot? Any cousins growing up? Who did you see a lot?
Well, Donald and Gerald. That was Charlie and Leah's.
Yeah. You used to see Don a lot?
I saw them a lot. And when I was younger, I used to see Lenny a lot. We went to yeshiva together.
Yeah, who else did you see a lot?
We used to go out, we went out to a air show.
When did you start smoking? How old were you?
8.
8?
You know, up at camp, this is funny.
I mean 8.
No, I was 8 years old when we had a camp. Before camp, maybe 7, we had an adult camp at times. You know, sometimes it was an adult camp.
I know.
And the adults used to put out their cigarettes in the ashtrays.
And you used to take them?
No, I had a little corncob pipe. I used to break up the cigarettes and put them in the corncob pipe. A little corncob pipe.
How old were you?
8, and I used to smoke it in the corncob pipe.
When did you start smoking cigarettes regularly?
Well, regularly, in my first year of high school.
How did you get them?
Bought them at Saul's at the corner of RJJ. We had a drugstore.
And you used to smoke regularly?
Oh, we used to get them for 2 for a nickel plus a match.
But I'm saying first year in high school is when you regularly started smoking.
Oh, yeah, I used to smoke and didn't buy a pack, but I smoked.
When did you first notice a problem with your walking?
Oh, after the Army. I didn't notice it when I first got married because the only problem I started to see, before I got married, I used to get a little shaking in the leg, you know, but I paid no attention to it. You know, when it was cold, I made a little shake.
So you were about 25.
No, when I came out, I was going with this girl I told you in Williamsburg, and I used to take a bus home, and sometimes I'd wait, and it was cold, my leg would shake a little. But I was walking fine, I was running, I had no problem with my leg. We got married in '61 on a hot, humid day. I would get vertigo, and that was actually the start of the problem. And I had no problem walking then. It was the spinning and everything, and Dr. Bumsey used to come over. The doctor used to come to the house in those days. Dr. Bumsey used to come over and said, well, you've got a little problem with vertigo, but you didn't put it together with MS. And it happened quite a few times. And that was actually because of the MS.
When did it really start to get bad?
In '71.
That's when you had a dead leg?
Yeah, I started a little bit of a drag.
Hmm.
And that's when I went to Mount Sinai. And I had all these tests.
They didn't diagnose it right away.
They said it was a demyelinating disease, which is really MS, demyelinating.
Hmm.
I had a little drag,
Come here.
My dorsiflex was a little off, but I was walking all right.
So when you were a kid, I know you played stickball.
Oh yeah,
Did you play other sports?
yeah,
What'd you play?
yeah. I played handball.
Basketball?
Not so much basketball, no. Softball, I was good at softball. Volleyball, I loved volleyball. I was good at volleyball. Softball. I should be looking over there.
It's okay. I got you.
No, and a little basketball. Swimming, I was good at swimming. I was a good fast runner. When I was young, I was a very fast runner.
You always liked to swim. You learned to swim in camp, I
I was
assume?
good, yeah. But I ran fast. From the main house, I ran down that hill very fast. I used to like to hike. Softball, I was good. I used to hit that ball. Baseball. I say volleyball, I was good at volleyball.
Now, when you moved to the Bronx, I assume was because you were working in Briarcliff?
Yeah,
That was the idea?
I would have moved up there, but Mommy wasn't driving in those days, so she needed something where the stores would be close.
Wait, that's why you moved, and then you moved to Queens because you had that's when you had the shirt store.
Yeah.
You look tired.
I'm all right. I'm all right. Yep. So we moved to Queens, Far Rockaway, and then I had various jobs. I was going out at night. I was selling pictures. I was selling shoes at night, and weekends. In the mall, I sold shoes.
Which mall?
In Valley Stream. So I sold shoes.
Weren't you also selling real estate in Florida?
Well, that came in Staten Island, when we lived in Staten Island. I went out there selling, I did good on that.
How did you get your job at General? Or I guess it was General then, wasn't it?
General, yeah.
That's when you first got into wallpaper?
Well, I mean, since I had my store, and I was familiar with wallpaper, right?
How did you get the job though?
Good question. I was interested. How did I get the job?
You were reading the newspaper?
No, it was a recommendation. Somebody called. They called me. They called me because they knew I was around. I was available.
Huh.
Martina Heffel, she called me. They called me. They heard of me. They called me. I was the first one hired with them. So they gave me a call.
So what do you remember about me growing up early on when I was little nothing? What do you remember about me when I was an infant?
Well, we were living in Canarsie when you were first born, and at the time when you were very infant, I had the Martin store. I used to come home at night late because I worked long hours, and I remember when you started walking, we had this little walker thing you used to sit in to walk, and we used to play with you, hold your hand, in the crib and everything. But you were a good baby. You were a very good baby, and just like to feed you. We went out a lot. Wherever we went, we traveled with a playpen. We had a playpen, a folding playpen. We used to put it in the car. And we went on picnics a lot with Bill and Marilyn. I don't know if you remember them, Bill and Marilyn. So we went on picnics.
Just go to Bear Mountain with them.
Yeah. But Mom used to take Eno to the we moved to the Bronx Zoo. I remember when you first started, we were looking around for a yeshiva for you, you know, to start with school. I remember following the school bus. Make sure you got there. We're so worried about.
What was the first school I went to? It was a girls'
It was
school.
a girls' school.
What, remember the name of it?
Bet Jacob or something.
Where was it?
It was in the Bronx.
And that was just for preschool, I guess, for 1
Preschool.
year.
I remember they showed us the cots where you would lie down and rest on the cots.
Now, the idea of me going to yeshiva was Ma's idea.
Basically, yes. And she didn't believe in the public schools for you. So I remember following the bus to make sure you got to school okay.
After I was born, she didn't
And I
work
remember every
for a
morning
while.
you'd have to go down, Mommy would walk you down to the bus stop, which is a block away, and I'm talking about in the Bronx. And I would get up in the morning before going to work and put on your snowsuit and make sure you were dressed warm and everything, dressed right. It was a blue suit, and I would zip you up and everything, and I would dress you in the morning. Then she would take you down to the bus to catch the bus.
Huh.
But, I remember your birthday parties. We had birthday parties. We went to this thing in actually it was Queens. We had the Rise. Remember we went to the Rise. We're friendly with Glenn and his son. So we would go on these.
Glenn?
Glenn. What was his name? Bill's son.
Oh, yeah, Glenn and Stephen.
Yeah. Huh?
Glenn and Stephen.
Well, mostly Glenn. You were closer in age to Glenn.
Yeah.
So we went on these rides there. You go on these.
I think 1 year we had a big birthday party for me in a restaurant. You rented a room.
Yeah, that was in. Oh God, that was in not the Five Towns. It was.
Queens?
I remember the restaurant. It wasn't not
Yeah.
the Five Towns.
But otherwise, you didn't have big parties for me. I mean,
Usually at home.
yeah,
And Sue would come over with Amy.
yeah.
Sue would come over with Amy. Had pictures of you in the high chair with that.
Yeah.
It's not like today.
Yeah, I have
We'd
crazy
have
parties.
no, we'd have parties and these things with.
I'll shut it for 1 second.
No, we had parties for you. I think like in Nathan's once. We once had a party for you in Nathan's. It was in.
I don't remember.
Yeah, and.
So do you remember? Do you remember my first word?
Car.
I think it was bus.
Bus. I know it's not a bus. Yeah.
You weren't there.
No, but I heard it was bus.
Now, Ma took off from work once I was born. She wasn't working
No.
because I think.
back here.
I know, but I'm
Want to
talking.
take care of you.
Was she teaching at that point or afterwards?
She was subbing or something, but
No, I want to be this way. Dad!
no, she really stopped teaching then.
Look my hand.
She was teaching when we lived on Bedford Avenue. She was teaching and someone would drive for her.
Yeah, she learned how to drive late. Stop, Haley, come on. I don't know. Stop. Gotcha.
You ready?
Yeah.
No, I forgot to mention, when I was 15 years old, I was sitting on my friend Mendy's porch, and we were desperate to get a job for the summer, and there was nothing around. So this guy, Harry Mann, was delivering seltzer upstairs, and I said to Mendy, I'm so desperate for a job, I'll even work on that truck. So when the guy came up there, I asked him, hey, how about a job for the summer?
Will you finish the story?
And so I asked him, he says, yeah, I can use you. I had to get working papers. So he picked me up every morning at my house at 5 o'clock. And at 5 o'clock we went to the seltzer place on 60-something Street and loaded up with seltzer. I watched them fill the seltzer bottles. We loaded up the truck with seltzer cases. and we started delivering to people's homes. I put seltzer bottles between my fingers. I walked up the houses and delivered. So, work all day delivering soda and seltzer. At the end of the day, sometimes I get a nickel tip for working up flights of stairs. At the end of the day, we'd go around on 16th Avenue and 38th Street
Daddy,
and load up with soda,
Daddy!
load up the truck with
you
soda.
have to see this.
Home on 16th Avenue, I wouldn't take the nickel to take the trolley or the bus home. I would walk home to 58th Street to save a nickel. 7 o'clock, I would get home at night. I'd make the entire day 5 hours. From 5 in the morning till 7 at night for 5 hours. And then he'd pick me up the next day again at 5 o'clock. Load up in the morning for seltzer and load up at night the truck with soda. He wouldn't even drive me home. I would have to walk home at night. I was exhausted, and this is what I did for 5 days in the summer. I made a big $25 for the week. Maybe I made a few dollars extra on tips. That's what I did in the summer for a job. At 15. Hard work, let me tell you. Carrying a case of soda on my back, on my shoulders. But I needed a job. And I did with the money, I gave it to my mother, and she put it away for me. My mother was